right, hello and welcome to our L402 Aperture LangChainBitcoin demo video. I'm Hannah with Lightning Labs, and this is sort of an upgrade to the previous tutorial video we did where I demonstrated using LangChainBitcoin to go out and buy some inspirational quotes on a demo website I had set up. So we're doing that again. But this time we're doing it while we're running these two different applications inside Replit Repls. So a really cool, fun setup. Also, this is going to be a bit of a long demo video. So if there's a particular thing you're looking for, jump down to the timestamps in the video description. All right. So what we're going to do here is we are going to demonstrate Aperture and LangChainBitcoin, of course, which all use L402s. So the idea is we have one server up and running here. And if you're not familiar with Replit, it's really cool because it allows you to sort of spin up a new machine and it handles a lot of stuff for you. And so you can just go in there and, test out some software you're looking to test out, something like Aperture or LangChainBitcoin. Also, all of this stuff, these are going to be templates that will be on the Lightning Labs Replit homepage. So you can have a look at them there. As we update these templates, we'll update the README files on them. And of course, we'll put lots of different information and instructions in the description of this video. All right, cool. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this Replit here, which has Aperture running in it and is connected to an external Lightning node. And the other one, we're going to have a Lightning node running inside the Repl, which will be interesting and fun. So we have Aperture, we have a very basic content server running on one machine guarded by Aperture. And then on a different Replit Repl, we have LangChainBitcoin running with a Bitcoin in Lightning node running inside of that. And of course, LangChainBitcoin, it goes out and talks to an AI bot, and it gets that AI agent to go out and buy things for you on the internet, in this case, on this Repl right here. So that's the basic setup of what we're doing. So let's talk about this Repl specifically. All right. So we talked a little bit already about how Replit works, right? It's just this machine. You can, it's like a little Linux server, and you can spin things up here. So that's great fun. But it's important to note that how this works is that a Repl is based off sort of one programming language or one GitHub repo, right? One repo or one programming language. And then the other things that you want to pull in and work with, we're going to do via Nix packages. So this one here we have set up using this very, very simple Golang based content server written by L. So L Mutant. So here is the repo that I've used here in this Repl. And I won't dive into this. There's this YouTube video that goes along with it. So it'll walk you through all the specifics of configuring Aperture, really cool stuff. But this is a very, very simple content server written in Golang. Now, whatever you're doing, you might want to be doing something more sophisticated. So maybe you want to set up a Repl using perhaps a different programming language or a much more sophisticated repository, right? But this works very well to demonstrate what we're doing here. So I set up this Repl based on that particular repo, but also we want to pull in Aperture, right? We want to use Aperture. So how do we do that? Well, we go to this replit.nix file and we add Aperture to the packages. So here in this file, replit.nix, you just add these packages and you add in the packages that you would like to be using. Here I add Aperture and etcd because that's required by Aperture. It's something that it uses. And then you can add what other sort of tools that you like to work with, right? So, Vim, of course, here's this one I was playing with, right? And you can add them here, right? And so that's how we make other programs available to us inside Replit. All right. Cool. So we do that. One more important thing we want to note here also is if we go to the .replit file, if you're trying to pull in a Nix package and you get some sort of error, you just might want to check out what sort of channel, what version of Nix you're using. Also really important, if you run across any networking issues, check the port configurations. Replit does this thing where it sort of automatically assigns ports to you, right? So programs that are running. So just a couple things to keep in mind and check should you happen to run into any issues there. All right, cool. So we discussed the basics of that. We discussed the content server. I think we should start up this content server and add some very, very simple content. All right, so down here, here over on this side, here we can look at all our files. And then we have various different tools over in this corner here. And then I'm just running shell right here. All right, so to run this program, which is a Golang-based program, I'm first going to add this Go path. So I'm going to add that there. Oop, there we go. All right, then I'm going to run make install to compile this program. Cool, very quick and easy. And then I'm just going to run it by running app. Cool. And we can see that now it's running. All right, then I'm going to add, let's show you how to use it. We'll just add one more quote since I think we only have one at the moment on this one. We'll open a new shell here in this tab. All right, quick thing to note is because this is just the way Replit is set up, and because this is a Golang-based thing, we're also going to add the Go path here in this tab, right, in this shell. All right, cool. Now, here's our example of how to add another quote. We're going to add one more here since I think I already got that one. I've already used some Shakespeare. So now instead, we're going to go with some Richard Feynman. Awesome. And now we have quote number 2. Excellent. All right, so we have added a quote. Now, let's have a quick look at Aperture configuration. I'm not going to dive in depth on this one because L's demo video already goes into lots of depth with that. And this YAML file, the example config file, is, very well commented. So we're not going to dive in depth on this one. Just look at some of this basic stuff we got going on here. And we'll look at how to connect to this external node, which we're doing in this case, and some of the sort of peculiarities of running this in a Repl. So the first sort of oddity that we run into here is that we need to use this dev URL, right? And if you're not familiar with that, sort of Replit gives each Repl this sort of unique URL where you can find it. So if you're looking for that in yours, you could come up to this tab here, this web view, right? Once we get this started up, we'll see a little button where we can click on it. It'll open up in a new tab, and that new tab will have this URL. All right, cool. Now let's come down here and look at our authenticator stuff. This is how we reach our external node, because in this case, in this example, we're not running a node inside this Repl. We'll do that in the next one. In this case, we're connecting to an external node. So here I have an external node running. Cool. So that's what we're going to connect to. In this case, we're running on Signet. So we need, of course, the node's IP address or the URL. We need to tell it, what port to talk to it on. And we need to tell it what network it's running on. And then we need the TLS cert and a macaroon file. So I have already pulled those files off of that node and added them here. So here we can see we're using the invoice macaroon and we're using the TLS cert file. All right, cool. So with that data, if everything's configured properly, then this Repl will be able to talk to that node, which it needs to generate invoices and check if they've been paid and all that good stuff. All right, we're going to run etcd. That's going to run here. This is where we configure, we tell Aperture how to actually handle the content. Again, I'll refer you back to L's video to go into depth on that. But I will note this uniqueness of Replit. Again, check this config. We're using that dev URL here, right? And also be aware as well that you might, if you run into any problems reaching this, this Repl, right, using that dev URL, just check your port settings here. That might help you out a lot. All right, so, but basically we're saying, hey, Aperture, I always picture sort of Aperture as like, the bouncer at a nightclub or something, and whenever, a particular request comes in, Aperture stops you and says, hey, wait, did you pay your 10 Satoshis to get that, right? And then it goes through the process of sending out an invoice, a macaroon, so that you can generate an L402, which we will show shortly. All right, cool. So now that we've got this all sorted, let's go ahead and start it up and show you that it's working. So in this shell, I'll just run etcd here. Awesome. And then in this one, I'll make one more, and this is where I will start up Aperture. So let's go back to my README file, and we can get some information here on how to start up Aperture. Okay, so we paste in this command here, and then we're going to just change our, add this to match our REPL's name. So in this case, it's Aperture Connect. Well, and run that. All right, it is listening. Oh, and then here you go. You can see show web content again. You can push that to go find your dev URL. All right, cool. So I'll prove to you that this is working. We're going to open Postman. You can see here. Look at this location there. All right, let's go over to Postman. Let me adjust that. Awesome. And we are going to make a GET request. We're going to ask for quote number 1. Remember, we're expecting the bouncer here, Aperture, to stop us and say, hey, you need to pay 10 Satoshis. So we're going to send this, a payment required. And also, let me see here. I can expand this. I'm going to go look at headers. I'm going to come over here. And we can see exactly what it did. It returned us, says, hey, here's a macaroon and here's an invoice you have to pay. So it gave us the ingredients that we need to construct an L402 and come back and be able to get access to that content. Awesome. So that wraps up this discussing this REPL. Now we'll move along to the next one. All right, here we are back over at the second Replit REPL. This is where we are running LangChainBitcoin. And again, how Replit works is that in this case, again, we've set this one up based off one repository. So if I click here, you can see it's based off the LangChainBitcoin repo, right? And this is a Python repo. Cool. So we have that running here. And again, very, very briefly, what this does is a sort of a wrapper around LangChain. And you can add your, say, OpenAI API key, and then you can basically take an AI agent and make it Bitcoin and Lightning aware and have it go out and buy things for you, which is what we'll hopefully show you now. All right. So we've got that. Again, remember that if we want to pull in additional things, we need to do that via Nix. So we'll go look at our replit.nix file. You can see we've got lots of things in here, but the important thing, if you're setting this up somewhere, is to add Bitcoin D and LND, right? Or you could add a different Bitcoin backend, but we definitely need LND. And in this case, I've added these things, and then all this other stuff, which works with Bitcoin, sort of got pulled in the process. All right, once again, remember to keep an eye on the channel that you're using for Nix. If you have any errors or if you run into any networking errors, come and check your port configuration down here. All right, cool. Let me just close those files. We got that. All right. So we need to tell, well, we're going to run a Bitcoin D and LND node inside this REPL. But before we can get this all wired up, we need to tell this LangChain Bitcoin a bit. We need to give it lots of information about what we want to do. We need to tell it a little bit about sort of the API that it's going to be using to go out and buy things for us. So first, let's look at this file. Now, again, by the time you're watching this, this template might have changed a little bit. So just keep an eye on the description in this video or on this README file here for instructions on how to add information specific to what you're trying to do with LangChainBitcoin. All right, but in this case, All right, and however you're using this, you're going to have to give it this information in one way or another, right? So here we're saying, so we have some information, right, where it can find the macaroon to talk to our node, where it can find the TLSer. If you'll notice, all of these at the moment are internal paths because we're going to use an internal node here. Localhost, right, that's just, so you can add here information if you want to connect to an external node, but in this case, we're demoing an internal node. All right. And then here we have to give it the the URL to reach the API. So this is the dev URL for that other REPL that we just set up with Aperture. And we give it a bit of a description of what we're trying to do, and we give it a name. Excellent. And then here in this other file, I have my OpenAI API key. You need that as well. Cool. All right. After we do that, we're going to come right to this file here. Again, these details might have changed by the time you're looking at this, but it'll all be in the README. The important part is you need to tell LangChainBitcoin a little bit about the service that you want to go purchase things from. So here we're just saying, hey, look, there's this API endpoint called quotes, and there's a certain amount of quotes available there, and you can go purchase them. So, hey, cool. And what's really cool about this, of course, is that LangChainBitcoin can go out and try and make a purchase. It'll get back a Lightning invoice and a macaroon, and that it can construct that L402 for us and go back to that server again and get access to that content. Awesome. Now let's do the tricky part, and let's start running a Bitcoin D and LND node inside this REPL. All right, so we have the instructions here. We're starting up Bitcoin D inside a REPL. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I don't want to type the whole name of this REPL 3 different times because it's a long one. All right, but I have this command here, and we'll walk through it. So I'm going to copy and paste, and let's have a look at it. Again, we're running on Signet. We want to prune this pretty well so that it can run inside this small environment. We need to set this data directory because only the data in this sort of home directory here is persistent when you have a REPL set up. So we need to make sure that we're saving our Bitcoin data here in this home directory. And then we give it just some basic user information, username and password, so that Bitcoin D and LND can communicate with each other. One thing to note, if you're starting this up for the first time, which I'm not doing here, so I won't demo it, but if you are, you need to make this Bitcoin data directory. All right, so let's start this up. Cool, that's doing what we expected. I've already synced, most of the blockchain, so that won't take long there. Now let's open a new shell here, and we're going to start up LND. Again, I'm cheating. I've already got a startup command here where I've added the name of this particular REPL. Let's just look through it. Again, all the basic stuff. We're telling it we're running on Signet. Again, we have to set the data directory inside this home directory so that it's persistent. And then the, RPC, username and password, ZMQ stuff, etc. So let's run that. Cool. It needs us to unlock it. Unlock the wallet. And if you were setting this up for the first time, you would first have to create the wallet. It will give you that, seed phrase. So if you plan to come back to this REPL and keep using it, make sure you document that appropriately. Here, we're just going to do unlock. I'll enter my password. Awesome. So now LND is up and running. So we have Bitcoin D running, and we have LND up and running. All right, so now that we got that node up and running, let's ask it to do some things for us. First, let's come back to this main.py file. This is where we are going to give our AI bot specific instructions. Type them in here. So let's start with the simple one. Hey, does my node have any channels open? Let's go and run this. This runs in the console here. There we go. It pulls some information about our node. Hey, yes, your node currently has 2 active channels open. Awesome. Very cool. All right, now for the super fun part, let's change this and ask it to make a purchase for us. All right. Please purchase quote number 2. Let's give it a go. Hey, look at that. It worked. Awesome. So as we can have a look here, you see we got back an invoice from the Aperture service running in the other Replit. We had to go out and pay that. We got a pre-image and we used that to construct our L402, go back to the server, get access to that fabulous quote. And here it is, one excellent quote from Richard Feynman. Awesome. So let's recap what we did in this demo video. We did lots of stuff. Remember, all the timestamps will be in the description. But basically, we used Replit here. We used BitcoinD. We used LND. We used Aperture. And we used LangChainBitcoin, all to show you how you can create some sort of content or service. You can guard it with Aperture. And then you can set up, a Bitcoin Lightning node. And you can use an AI bot, make it Bitcoin aware, and get it to go out and buy information and services for you out on the internet. As always, don't forget to check out docs.lightning.engineering for more information. Thanks.